if you are watching this, you are probably familiar with the game Deltarune and its characters. A wonderful quirky game about queer teenagers and escapism. This game and this fandom means a lot to me, and I could talk about this for hours. I consumed so much Deltarune stuff in Chapter 2 era that I could recite all of the Woody theory evidence like Shakespearean quotations. However, I found a lack of character relationship analysis in this fandom, specifically in a YouTube video format. Except for this video, which is actually really good, and it is a good coincidence that both of our first videos are about Noelle holiday. This video is actually centered around both Noelle and Kris's relationship, an aspect of the game that isn't quite discussed other than the weird root. And yeah, everybody knows the shipwreck that is the toxic, hetero-coded, abusive relationship in Snowgrave. However, many people don't seem to be taken interest in how these people acted before Chapter 1, which is very important for understanding our two main characters and the Snowgrave route. So, I will show you how Kris and Noelle's relationship is one of the most important aspects of the game and how devastating effects it has on the weird route. Let's start by looking at our characters first. Kris is our non-binary human that we play as our protagonist, and they are a fucking menace when it comes to understanding their motives, because with the recent release of Chapter 3 and 4, 99% of the player base got truth nuked by their actions. You know, just basic actions like working with the main antagonist of the game, no big deal. It is well known that Kris and us, the soul, are different entities, and sometimes Kris reacts or disrupts our choice of dialogues for the sake of their likings. But Kris also had a life before us, before the soul entered their body. They feel somewhat disassociated from the monsters, because they are the only human in town. We can understand what their personality and likes were through other individuals' dialogues. But these are already well-known facts by the Deltarune community since the release of Chapter 1 in 2018. Back then, we didn't have any fancy theories like the T theory or the device theory. No, we had fucking Kara versus Sense, but in Deltarune for some reason. Or Dark Worlds are imaginary in Susie and Kris's head. Yeah, looking back, this era was pretty bad in terms of theory crafting and analysis. We had so little to work on. Anyway, despite only having one damn chapter, there were some dialogue lore drops from various people, such as Toriel, Asgore, and non-surprisingly, Noelle Holiday. So most people in hometown see Kris as the quiet, weird human kid. Even Rudy says that jokingly. They don't talk much, and they certainly don't feel content about being the only human in town. They are also a gamer who enjoys playing video games. So this is a rough summary of Kris's character. From Noelle's dialogue, we can say that Kris is a little bit of a prankster, but we will get into that when we talk about their relationship. Now, we can move on to the Noelle, aka Girl Next Door. I know this video is actually centered on both Noelle and Kris's relationship, as the title suggests, but Noelle is the cutest, best character in this game, and yeah, I'm not exaggerating it, you can go fact check me. Dropping my Noelle pills aside, she is a well-veiled main character who has huge narrative importance in the overall story, despite not taking any role in the prophecy as far as we know. Maybe she is the angel, or she is the girl with the hope in her heart, but we are certain that she is as important, if not as important, as the main trio. Personality-wise, she is a kind people pleaser that has some sort of love for fears and mysteries that helped her to develop a crush for Susie, the most feared girl in the school, who almost turned Kris into a headless corpse on a random Thursday morning, by the way. Yeah, she was just being a bully, but you get the idea about Noah's love for fear. Her home life is also somewhat problematic because her father is in the hospital with some mysterious illness. Her mother, Mayor Holt, is a total control freak asshole. Sorry. And Noelle has an older sister named December, who mysteriously disappeared, and finding her is one of the game's main narratives. She also has interesting relationships with people around her, Most interesting ones are her relationship with Bertley and, of course, her relationship with Susie. Quick side note, I actually want to talk about Caddy too, but things are still pretty vague about these two, so sorry, Cat fans, you will get your revenge when Chapter 5 drops, I hope. In a nutshell, Bertley studies with Noel and gets good grades. He is just an annoying dork, but it shows Noel is probably the smartest kid in school. Bertley and Noel are actually okay friends. They even play racing video games together. Funnily enough, Bertley thinks Noel has a crush on him, and he doesn't want to break her heart. The fandom usually depicts Bertley as an incel, but this is just a flanderization of the character. We can see in the Snowgrave that he cares about Noel's well-being, with him not attacking her in the fight and overall being worried about her. And Susie, the fearsome girl in the school. Noel has a huge crush on her, and the game presents it multiple times with various scenes. However, Susie seems somewhat oblivious to this crush. During chapters 2 and 4, their relationship evolves, and Susie seems to have started developing some feelings for Noel. But it is too early to say that. Anyway, the key point is she has a giant crush on Susie, which is kind of interesting, seeing Kris is very fond of Susie, and many people pointed out there might be some sort of love triangle or polyship, but that's a topic for a different discussion. Also, if you eat dinner with Susie or have a tea party after Noel opens the door of her home, she will get so confused. Just look at her dialogue. Oh, and Noel apparently eats caviar a lot based on this new item dialogue. Yeah, she is rich. What do you expect? We are finally moving on to the main course. So, if you played the game, you know Kris and Noel's history as friends is a little bit complicated. They seemed to be close growing up as neighbors, and their families were very, very close. We know from chapters 2 and 4 that Kris was pranking Noelle pretty often. Some of the pranks include sneaking under her bed and scaring her, putting ketchup on their hands and pretending it was blood, scaring her with the ice cryptic stories, and my favorite, shaking the Ferris wheel when the two of them were in. Those are mostly harmless, fun little pranks. Kris would also come often to the holiday house. No, sorry. Holiday mansion. And play with their piano. Noelle describes it as, it felt like a concert that only I'm invited to. She clearly enjoyed how they played the piano. Kris actually stopped playing when they realized they were being watched by Noelle. But Kris is weird, so it is hard to interpret this. We also know that despite their fallout, Noelle still helped them with the school stuff. Normally, we could say, oh, this is just Noelle people pleasing. Well, you would be right, but Noelle also states in chapter 2 that she can only say no to her father and Kris. So clearly, Noelle was really valuing their friendship despite not seeing each other as much as before. She also really, but really knows Kris. Like, she's one of the only people who notices that Kris is not acting like the usual Kris. She knows something is different about them. I always found it weird because, yeah, Kris might not be the most social kid, so people around them might not understand that they are being controlled by some other being, but their mother? Yeah, she's completely oblivious to their actions. Toriel cannot beat the fraud parent allegations. Anyway, jumping to chapter 2, baby. In chapter 2, after Noelle finds herself in the cyber world and reunites with Kris, they share a lot of dialogue. But the most important one is the December puzzle room. She talks about how the two of them used to explore the town together. She says that Kris is the only one that knows how weird I am. Also, and Edison advertises to them some dating shoes, which makes Noelle question their friendship. She says, we've been neighbors forever and know each other better than anyone. Yet somehow it is hard to say we are exactly friends. If you choose the we are friends option, Noelle will be relieved, but If you choose we're something else, Noel will get confused and will not see this as something good. This is actually pretty important evidence on how Noel thinks of their relationship. They were close, but they started seeing each other less and can't put a label for their friendship. Her getting relieved at the we are friends option indicate that Noel was not sure if Kris would call her a friend, and yeah, there is a lot of miscommunication going on with both of them. Also, in the first mice puzzle room, if you try to backtrack before solving the puzzle, Noel will say, Merry Christmas, that's the way we came from. Which is cute how she still calls them Christmas. I just wanted to add this because I think it's missed a lot by the people. Also, I want to quickly mention everyone's favorite theory slash analysis, the tea theory. So each party member gets their own unique flavored tea item, and their healing changes based on how the user feels about this person. Now, as you can see in this chart, Noel and Kris get the same amount of heal, and it is relatively low compared to some other party members like Susie and Noel. Noel's comment about Kris tea is interesting though. She says, tastes like cinnamon. What is this aftertaste? Which to many indicates Noel did not get more heals because of us, the player, that caused this aftertaste. Given that Noel is the only one noticing something is off about Kris lately, it is legitimate to assume this. Pretty unrelated, but Kris howling like a dog for a treat from Noel is peak writing and should be acknowledged more, with all the Kris dog parallels from the new chapters. There are so many more dialogues to cover, but these indicate that they were at least best friends at some point. But they started seeing each other less, and their friendship was affected by this. You might be wondering when I will talk about the weird root, and I should probably talk about the weird root in chapter 2 section. But I will talk about it as a whole with the chapter 4's weird root. You will understand why I did this. In chapter 3, it is shown that the Holiday family and the Dreamer family were indeed close. The cutscene shows how everybody in the house enjoyed watching TV. There is one dialogue by the Ram that is not talked about. Ram says that a girl and Kris used to play make believe in their home and interacted with both Queen's and the King's Lightward object, respectively. It is good to assume that the said girl was Noelle, and yeah, it's a cute reflection of their childhood. It is funny how King in Chapter 1 does not have anything special for Kris. He just threatens Kris, and this is it. Chapter 1 is really different in comparison to the other chapters, though. Now, moving on to the chapter 4. Noelle invites Kris and Susie to study in their mansion, where Susie thinks that she can collect evidence to open the bunker. Anyway, things happen and Susie and Noelle start to talk about Kris. Noelle specifically mentions that she thinks Kris is not acting like their usual self. She says that in her dream, which is the dark world, Kris kept looking at her as if trying to tell her something, and their speech was odd. After that, Suji mentions that Kris is just weird and good at flirting, which makes Noelle confused and makes both Kris and Noelle blush a little. She even mentions that Kris should give flirting lessons, which Noelle comments on saying that sounds fun, which is also interesting. Noelle comments on how they wouldn't probably teach her flirting lessons. I wonder why she thinks like that. After that, Susie mentions that there is a photo of Noelle and Kris in the room when they were kids. Susie says that she didn't know they were close, which, more interestingly, Noelle just brushes off it as we are just neighbors. That's all, which distracts Kris 2 times. So after that, Susie comments on how in this photo they are riding a Ferris wheel, which Noelle disregards as a forced thing, which again makes Kris and Noelle blush. So it is pretty obvious that these two were just neighbors. It is blatantly obvious that Noelle just tries to play it cool and doesn't want to give any other ideas to her crush Susie. I don't think Noelle thinks their bond with Kris is as simple as just neighbors, given Chapter 2's dialogue options. Same with Kris. They seem to be genuinely confused and distracted by those lines. I mean, yeah, she downgrades the relationship, but she doesn't know Kris is eavesdropping on them. Oh, also, Noelle's room has two interesting Kris related things. One of them is Noelle's cycling wallpaper, which is Kris's picture motion blurred as a kid. It is actually cute considering they are the only one in the cycling wallpaper who is not a holiday family member, which again confirms their bond. You wouldn't put your forced neighbor in one of your cycling wallpapers. The other thing is the cactus on the desk. Kris remembers it as named Christmas, which is the nickname that Holiday family gave Kris. After interacting with it, Noelle mentions that Bertley calls it Tusunsun, which Kris presumably gets a little sad, and the dialogue box changes into poorly renamed at some point. I don't think Noelle forgot the name of the cactus though. It might be another thing to make Susie think that she and Kris were not that close, which is also pretty reasonable considering she doesn't even mention Kris when interacting with the piano, despite clearly missing them playing the piano in her house. Poor Kris. Now, before we get into what all of those mean, I would like to present some weird root stuff too. Now, if you celebrate Berkeley in Chapter 2, Chapter 4 will have some alterations. Noelle will call Kris in her room to have a personal talk. She explains how Kris came to their house in the night and explained all the weird shit that happened in Chapter 2 was all just a stupid prank and apologized for the weird behavior. Noelle explains the moment as somewhat comforting. She mentions how she missed Kris's real voice, even starting to sniffle when she heard that numbly weak voice. After that conversation, she mentions there was something else Kris did, and she has to ask about it, and starts to advance towards Kris. She mentions how Kris took her hand, removed the thumb ring from her finger, and says that when they see each other again, she should not mention any of that. And after that, you have some dialogue options that either aborts the route or tragically continues it. As you notice, Noelle did not get to ask her question. Maybe she was going to ask about why they were so protective about not mentioning any of these. Or was going to ask Kris if this was some sort of romantic thing. We don't exactly know, but what we do know is that Kris gets really uncomfortable when Noelle starts to lean towards Kris. It is because we, the soul, are in the room with Noelle, and they are rightfully uncomfortable with the soul being around Noelle. As you can see, Kris is eager to protect Noelle. They clearly care about Noelle, which is clear when Kris becomes mad as hell in the bathroom scene and in Chapter 4's Weird Root Different Ending. So this was all the stuff that was shown in the games. And don't worry, I will talk about this Weird Root scene more detailed in the end of the video. Now let's recap a little, shall we? Kris is the possessed weird kid who has some interesting narratives in the game, and their intentions are still unclear. But they care about their friends a lot. They feel disassociated from the monsters. Also, with the new egg rooms, we can say that they are trying so hard to repress some memories. Noelle is the smart, rich, Mr. Lover girl next door. Her father is in the hospital. Her mother is really cold and controlling, and she deeply misses her older sister, December Holiday. Noelle was close to Kris at some point in her life, but they started seeing each other less, presumably because of the family related issues, and their friendship was affected a lot by it. Noelle seems to be missing Kris a lot, whether she's aware of it or not. Some of the things that she does indicate this, such as saying they are the only one besides Rudy she feels comfortable saying no to, tells them she misses hearing them play the piano at their house, and looks back on the times when they hang out more in her house, acts more comfortable with Kris than with anyone else, admits they are the only one who truly gets her, and vice versa. She consistently thinks about them and the pranks they used to pull on her in the entirety of chapter 2, has a photo of them and only them as one of her desktop backgrounds. And my favorite, is a cactus named Christmas. Now, it is hard to know what exactly Kris sees about Noelle and their past, but some things are clear. They seem to care a lot about them, despite not seeing each other as much as they used to. Kris seems to still remember those memories fondly. Kris is rather confused when Noelle downgrades their relationship as just forced neighbors, when they were clearly best friends. Again, Kris's motives are complicated and unknown, but they clearly care about their friends. Kris seems to be slightly upset by Noelle, acting like their friendship didn't matter that much. And this was the recap of the evidence we covered so far. Well, dear viewer, you can clearly see that these two people are the miscommunication final boss. Yes, they started seeing each other less, and their friendship did not die. We still have no clear reason why this started. Many point out Tess's disappearance and the Dreamer divorce, but it can be caused by an entirely different reason. And maybe there is no reason for them getting drifted away. Sometimes life just happens. Although I highly anticipate that we will find some clear answers in the future chapters. To me, their friendship was very, very important and will definitely play a huge role in the later chapters. Now, some of you might be questioning whether one of them had a crush on the other when they were children. To me, it is entirely plausible based on Noelle's first real photo and how fondly she remembers them. These people are dumb teenagers. Well, at least Kris is not a dumb teenager considering they will sacrifice Undyne next week. But so yeah. Maybe Noelle rekindled her crush when Kris came to their house to tell them it was a stupid prank. She explains that moment as something really heartwarming, which makes the weird root 10 times more evil in my eyes. Kris should have kicked us until we are 1 HP. Most valid crush out ever. So this leaves us with one question. What's next? Now, predicting Deltarune is really hard, but I have my own thoughts based on these analyses. I believe that Noelle will meet a really horrible fate in the Weird Root, despite Chris' effort to keep them safe. Now, this is reasonable to assume, but I have my own theory with a different take. Well, to be clear, not entirely my theory. When I started writing this script for this video, I've seen a lot of people talking about what I'm about to say in Twitter. Just this video took me so long to make, so I don't want to claim this theory entirely mine. Anyway, I believe if we abandon Snowgrave in chapter 4, Noelle and Chris's relationship might get more development. Why? Because Bertie will still be in a coma, and Noelle thinks Kris already rekindled their old relationship, and she's pretty much thinking the old Kris is back. The Kris that she had known for her whole life. And she seems very fond being around them. Now, we know the festival will have huge effect on people's relationships, seeing how big of an event it is these days. Maybe Abandoned Chapter 4 Weird Dude is a somewhat important save file that expands their romance, since we know Toby is not afraid to tease possible romantic scenes, which I think is pretty amazing. Have you seen the scene with Susie falling into Chris's arms? Oh my god. In this possible abandoned route, again, Bertley most likely will be in a coma, so Bertley's absence might change more scenes than just a few dialogue options. Despite still going out with Susie, Noelle might have some special dialogues or even scenes for this route. Now, sadly, this theory has many holes in it. I'm even a little embarrassed to call it a theory because of the lack of coherent evidence. As you know, if we abandon the route in chapter 4, pretty much everything plays out the same. Susie and Noah will not change their dialogue. Carol will come home early, and Susie is still taking Noah to the festival. Even Noah's dream dialogues are the same. despite Noelle having a very different Dark World experience in the weird round. This theory pretty much depends on Berkeley's absence and Noelle's complex feelings. It might be a little off to think Berkeley will affect the weird route this much. After all, Kris states he will get better twice. So this route could be a route like Berkeley's broken arm, where he is still attending to the festival. Anyway, given that this game has so many small details for alternative items and dialogues, my hopes are pretty high. But this is just my own thinking. But I will believe it. Again, this is a very small and minor aspect of the game. I just wanted to share my opinion about it, even if it's not going to happen. It is always free to theorize Deltarune. Yes, even in this economy. Also, it is pretty crazy to think we don't know anything about chapter 6 and 7. Chapter 5 could be our last chapter before things get really serious. Maybe it is somewhat greedy to ask about the Noelle and Kris suit, given that we already have one that is the best and the creepiest aspect of the game so far. But as I said, I want to see them truly rekindle their feelings and see how much they actually care for each other instead of having major miscommunication issues or fucked up things. I hope this video helped you understand the things and the themes that we will explore in the future chapters. Honestly, I feel so sad about these two. As Noel states, they are the only ones who truly understand each other. I really wish we could have gotten more Chris's individual thoughts about Noel in chapter 4. I am very curious about the festival in chapter 5. I think it is the perfect place to clarify things between them. It is almost confirmed at this point, but Noel will return to the Dark Worlds in future chapters, and the soul is probably going to get separated from Kris in the later chapters. I hope Noel helps them because, yes, Susie will be devastated when she realizes the whole soul thing, despite the fact that they would probably be better friends without the soul's influence. Wow, I guess that's the end of the video then. Believe it or not, this video was originally started as a shipping video. Anyway, this video took me over 50 hours to make, mainly because I was inexperienced in making video essays. But I'm glad I did this video. As I said, the video changed a lot over time, so some parts might feel long or short. Also, while I was making this video, Cognizant Pixels just uploaded a really good Noel psychological analysis video. Shout out to them. It is a good video. You should check it out. This is also my first video, so I'm open to any criticism. I want to make some other videos too, but I haven't decided it yet. It can be a lot about Deltarune, it can be about some other fandom. I want to make an Oval House video someday, but I don't know. Again, sorry with the voice, there's not much I can do with the equipment I have, but I re-recorded most of the lines again to sound more smooth or eradicate the weird noises, background noises there. But thank you for watching this far again. It means a lot to me. So have a wonderful day.